These DIY keychains look store-bought, but they're surprisingly easy to make. Hello, I am Katie from the CraftyBlogStalker.com, and I am super excited about this project. If you're new to my channel, make sure and hit that subscribe button. Today I am partnering with Let's Resin, and I will walk you through step by step on how to create these custom keychains. I'll share some beginner tips and show how to get that professional polished look. Here are supplies we're using, and everything can be found at letsresin.com, but I do have a supply list with shoppable links either in the description of this video, in the blog post, or through this QR code. I am using the flower keychain resin mold. These are a silicone mold, and there's a mold for every letter of the alphabet, including a blank one. I'm not going to make all of the keychains, but I will make quite a few. To know how much resin to make, I'm going to take one of my molds and fill it with water. I filled my A mold with water. I'm going to carefully dump it into this cup and try and get all of it in there. And then this will tell me about how much resin I need for each mold. My cup says about 5 milliliters. I'm gonna do 4 molds, which means I need about 20 milliliters, but I'm gonna do a little bit more just to be safe. I'm gonna dry my mold and dry my cup. My resin came with this silicone mixing cup, but I don't need to make that much. I'm probably only going to make, like 7.5, 8 milliliters, and that's gonna be really hard to measure on this cup. So I've got a disposable cup here that I will use, and I will do 5, I think, of each. So I'll make 10 ounces and I'll combine 5 milliliters of both A and B. I'll start by putting some gloves on. Resin is really harmful to the skin, so you don't want to touch the raw resin. And it's also a really good idea when you're working with resin to work in a well-ventilated area. I have a window over here to my left that is open just to help protect me from fumes. I'll start with my B, and I'll add 5 milliliters. And I'm just gonna put that in nice and slow. Then I'm gonna wipe my bottle just so it doesn't get sticky and put that cap back on. Then I'll add 5 more milliliters of my part A. And I'm just kind of looking here off to the side so I can see those measurements. I've got a popsicle stick and I can begin stirring. And I don't want air bubbles. It's kind of impossible to not get any air bubbles. If you stir slowly, you'll get less air bubbles, and you want to stir in both directions, scraping the sides, and you're going to stir for about a minute to make sure it is well combined. It's really important when you're measuring out the part A and part B that they are exact as possible. If you have more part A than part B, your resin won't set up correctly. So there is my 10 milliliters of combined resin, and there really aren't that many air bubbles in that, so that looks really good. I'll go ahead and divide my resin out. I really don't need that much for each color. I'll bring in my molds, and now I can decide what letters I want to do. I know I want to do K, since that is my name for Katie. There's the K. Bring in that resin. To color my resin, I am using this Epoxy resin pigment paste. You don't need that much of this color, especially with the small amount of resin that we're using. So for my K, I want it to be this cyan. So I'll open that and I'll add 1 drop. That other drop's gonna come out, that's okay. Stir that to combine it. For these little letters, you could just pour it directly in, but I wanna make sure that I don't make a mess. So I have these little pipettes, and then I can just get a little bit of the resin and put it exactly where I want it to go. I'm gonna take out that popsicle stick. Then I can squeeze the bulb of that pipette and it will suck up the resin. Find my K, and I can put that resin exactly where I want it. That looks really good. I'm done with this color. The next letter I want to do is A for Katie Adams. So I'll grab another little cup that I divided out. And this time I want to make a pink. I don't have pink with my pigment paste, but I do have a red and a white. So I'll add 1 drop of red and 1 drop of the white. Then I can take the other end of that popsicle stick and stir that up. I'll take a new pipette, again squeeze that bulb and pick up the resin. And I said I was doing the A. Now I can set this aside. For that A, I got just a little bit outside of the line, so I'll use a Q-tip to clean that up. For our next letter, let's do the E. And we'll do the E with green. So I'll add 1 drop of green. I'll get a new popsicle stick and stir that up. And this pigment paste really makes the resin more opaque than transparent. I'll grab a clean pipette, pick up that resin. We're doing the E. I'll clean that up with a Q-tip. For our last flower, let's do the blank flower right here. So this one will just be the flower without a letter in it. And let's do that one yellow. Now with this one, I am not going to use a pipette. I am just gonna pour it directly in because it's got a larger area. And then I can just push that where I want it to go. To get any air bubbles out from underneath, I can just kind of drop it a couple times, drop the mold. I'll do the same with the letters. I want to let this resin sit for at least an hour before I come in and fill it in with the background color. I have let these sit for about 4.5 hours, so now I'm going to go ahead and mix the resin for the back of the keychain. I want to make 30 milliliters of mixed resin, so that means I need to add 15 of both A and B. I'll start with A. And then I'll add my B. I've got my popsicle stick, and again, I will just stir to combine. I decided to wait 4 hours before adding the background to my keychains because I really didn't want the different layers to mix. There is my mixed resin, and I'll divide it again so I can do 4 different colors. And let's start with our solid flower. This one doesn't have a letter on it. I am going to do the back of this one black. So I'll add a drop of black to my resin mixture. And then I am just gonna pour this directly onto the back. Drop it a few times. Make sure that I don't have any bubbles in there. I'll grab my other mold that has my K and my E and my A. For my K, I want to do white. So I'll grab my white pigment paste. Now, if you're doing this at home, like on your dinner table or whatever, I highly recommend putting something down to protect your table because these pigment pastes, they do stain. Then I can stir it with my popsicle stick. I'll do the same thing and just pour this over my K. Then for my next letter, my E, I am going to attempt to make purple. And if it doesn't work, we'll just have a weird color. I'm gonna use 1 drop of this cyan, 1 drop of red, and then to lighten it, I'm gonna add a couple drops of white. Grab my popsicle stick and stir and hope that it comes out to the color I think it will. I'm going to add a little bit more cyan. Hopefully that'll brighten it up a little bit. That made it more blue. Actually, it's kind of gray. Let's add some red. Thinking of my primary colors here and what colors combine to make other colors. There we go. That made it a little bit darker. I'm actually going to add a little bit more yellow. The yellow really got me the effect that I wanted. Now, how many drops of paste are in this? Probably like 12. All right, and there is my purple. Okay, so I'm gonna come to my E, and I'm gonna do the same thing and just pour this over the top. Last we have the A. Let's do a blue. So I'll add a few drops of the blue. Ooh, that blue is so pretty. I wanna lighten that blue up just a smidgen, so I'm gonna add some white. There we go, that's the blue I want. I'll pour it over the top of my A. Drop them a couple times to try and fill in any air holes that I have. The last thing I want to do before I let these sit and cure is to pop all the air bubbles on the top of the resin. And to do that, I am going to use some isopropyl alcohol that I have in this little spray bottle. If I just miss the top of them, it will pop all of those air bubbles on the top of the resin, and then they'll dry nice and smooth. And now I'm gonna let these cure overnight, so I'll come back to these in the morning. I let my resin keychains set up overnight, so now is the fun part where I get to take them out of the mold. And they come out really well, and look at how cute. There's our blank one. There's the A, the E, and my purple kind of turned out brown, but that's my own fault because I added so much of that pigment paste. And then my K. Oh, those are so cute. I love them all. My molds also came with some jump rings and the keychain part. Get some of those out. I won't need that many. To attach our resin flowers to the keychain, I'll need 2 pairs of needle nose pliers. I need to open that ring a little bit more so it'll actually go through my resin flower. That through the hole, and then put it through the first chain on my keychain, and then close that ring back up. Now with jump rings, you don't want to force the ends together. You want to twist, and that's why you need 2 pairs of pliers. So I'm going to twist with the wrist to bring those ends together, and that's going to keep that loop. And there is my keychain. That's all there is to it. There's my E and my K. Didn't they turn out so cute? And they were so simple to make with Let's Resin. And now I have some custom keychains. A big thank you to Let's Resin for sponsoring this video. And if you love craft tutorials, make sure to check out my website, thecraftyblogStalker.com. Thanks everyone. Bye and happy crafting.